Chapter 20. For the next 2 weeks, Woody managed to avoid another arrest. He didn't miss a day of school, often arrived early and stayed late for extra study hall and tutoring. Tony, too, was back in school and putting more effort into his classwork. Joe was a place they preferred to avoid. Clifford Nance had the finest law office in Strattonburg. It occupied the top floors of an old building that was once the only bank in town, and from his large windows he looked down in the courthouse directly across the street. The Yangtze River could be seen in the distance. Mr. Nance had bought the building years earlier and spent a lot of money renovating it. His firm had 7 lawyers. It was the biggest in town. An elevator ran from the lobby straight to Mr. Nance's suite. Rodney Wall had never been near the office, though, like most lawyers in town, he had heard descriptions of it. As a young, lowly paid assistant public defender, he dreamed of one day achieving the success of a big-time lawyer like Clifford Nance. He wanted a fancy office, big firm, fine home, foreign cars, the works. And he secretly dreamed of working for the Nance firm. His plan was to gut it out in the trenches of public defender warfare, gain some experience, perhaps start building a reputation, then apply for an associate's position at the firm. But then a lot of young lawyers in Strattonburg had the same dream. At the appointed hour, the hour suggested by Mr. Nance, Rodney rode the elevator to the top floor and was greeted by a pretty secretary who offered him a coffee. Mr. Nance was on the phone and would be tied up for a moment. Rodney eased into a thick leather chair and admired the Persian rugs and modern art on the walls. He sipped his coffee and stared at his phone, as if matters were far more important than the Lambert case. The secretary typed away. The phones rang occasionally. Finally, a large door opened and Mr. Nance himself stepped out. He waved Rodney into his massive office and pointed to a plush sofa. "Let's sit over here," he said, "and keep things casual." "Sure," Rodney said as he glanced around. Nance's monument of a work desk was long and wide and appeared to be mahogany, though Rodney wasn't sure. A few files were stacked neatly, but for the most part of the desk was bare, and if the great man lived an uncluttered life and was concentrating only on the case before him. A conference table with chairs occupied one corner. The walls were covered with paintings and portraits. Everything was neat and perfectly organized, which came at no surprise. Mr. Nance's reputation was that of a trial lawyer who was always thoroughly prepared and organized. "Nice place you got here," Rodney said as he sank into the sofa. "Oh, it'll do," Mr. Nance said. He wore a navy suit, crisp white shirt, perfectly knotted tie, expensive shoes, gold watch. Rodney thought to himself, he probably spends more on clothes in 1 year than I'd earn in a salary. Mr. Nance said, You know, Rodney, I started in the PD's office 30 years ago. Back then we were in court every day, trying cases. The experience was incredible. How long have you been there?" "A year. Monk's a good man. You'll learn a lot from him." "So far, so good." Enough of the small talk. Mr. Nance cleared his throat as if it were time to move on. It was quite busy. "So let's talk about this case. The facts are straightforward. 3 stupid kids riding around, drinking beer. Nothing good was going to happen, right? But nobody got hurt. I mean, it was only a water pistol, a toy. Garth, my client, still maintains that it belongs to the youngest boy. Woody Lambert, age 13. Right, Woody and Tony, but I'm not sure that's true." "It's not," Rodney said, exerting himself. "It's not true at all. Neither Tony nor Woody had ever seen the pistol before." Well, that's what they say, and they are brothers, aren't they?" "They are, but they seem to be telling the truth." "No doubt. Look, Rodney, if we fight among ourselves, we all get hurt. I have a plan to get this case dismissed before the grand jury hands down an indictment against my client. Your clients, of course, are not facing indictment because they are minors. I believe I can convince Jack Hogan to cut us a deal and avoid serious charges for these boys. Of course, I'm deeply concerned about my client, Garth, because he is 18 years old and is being treated like an adult. He's not a bad kid, I assure you of that. Maybe a little immature, but he can outgrow it that if he gets the right help. His parents are worried about his drinking and drugs, and he has agreed to submit himself to a treatment facility. This will be very important to Jack Hogan and Judge Gantry. The Tuckers are good people. Garth still plans to go to college. Can you imagine how a felony conviction will haunt him forever? No college, no job, no future. How do you avoid a felony? Rodney asked. Start with the gun. I don't need to remind you how much Judge Gantry hates guns and violence. If we allow Woody, the 13-year-old, to claim ownership, then the gun loses some of its damage in circuit court. Sure, Garth used it for the robbery. Sure, it was really a dumb thing to do. But I'll argue that he was not only drinking, but already drunk, and thus wasn't sure of what he was doing. Woody produced the gun. All three boys were in on the robbery. All three needed to be punished. But it's imperative that we avoid a felony here, Rodney. Are you with me? I get that, but how would you convince Jack Hogan to reduce the armed robbery? By begging. I'll make a strong case that Garth is a good kid who was drunk, and that he was also misguided into believing you can't pull a real robbery with a water pistol, and that nobody got hurt, and that he's real sorry for his mistake, and he'll agree to a few days in jail, 2 years of probation, a big fine, full restitution to the store, and 100 hours of volunteer service. Anything to avoid the felony. And what about my clients? Come on, Rodney, they're juveniles. Different laws down there in that court. Your boys will get off with a slap on the wrist, a little probation, but nothing serious. Plus, they'll not have a criminal record. But they're innocent, Mr. Nance. Just call me Clifford. And they're not completely innocent. They were riding around drinking beer and looking for trouble, and they found it. As I understand things, the Lambert boys come from a rough home, and they're having trouble at school. This true? That's fair to say. Okay, so we take all three boys and we spread around the blame a little. Woody says he owned the gun. He and his brother say they were in on the decision to snatch some beer. Everybody's real sorry, and they've learned a valuable lesson. I'm not sure Woody and Tony will admit to anything except the beer. They have been pretty vocal in that they knew nothing about the robbery. That's where you come in, Rodney. That's what the defense lawyers are for. You've got to convince them that all three must stick together and stick to one story. Trust me on this. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I'm very good at what I do. I know the judges and the prosecutors, and they know me. Indeed, they do. There's a way out of this for all three boys, Rodney. We just need to use a bit of creative storytelling. Let each boy take a bite of the blame, and everybody gets out in one piece. Rodney took a sip of coffee and took a deep breath. Clifford Nance was very persuasive, but Rodney didn't really appreciate being pressured by another lawyer. Not like this. Rodney asked, what makes you so sure you can convince Judge Hogan to reduce armed robbery to misdemeanor? Clifford offered a smug smile as if he knew everything. Jack and I go way back. We've squared off in courtroom many times. Murder trials, drug trials, you name it. We have great respect for each other, respect that has been earned. This is not a serious case, Rodney. This is a story of three boys out joyriding and doing something stupid. Again, nobody got hurt. I know Jack, and I know I can convince him to back off and do Garth a favor. The Tuckers are nice people. Unlike most of the criminal defendants Jack prosecutes. We just need you to convince your clients to go along with our plan. It's not going to be easy. Do you really believe that Woody and Tony had no idea that Garth was up to? I'm not so sure about that. I've always had my doubts about their stories. Now you're talking, Rodney. I have doubts too. I would bet good money that those boys ran out of beer and talked about stealing some more. And I'll bet that the judge will think so too. Okay, I'll talk to my clients. I'm sure this will take several conversations. Well, let's hurry along. I'd like to cut a deal with Hogan before the grand jury gets the case. Nance smiled properly and stood. Conversation over. He walked Rodney to the door, paused, and rubbed his chin. Say, Rodney, how long do you plan to work for Monk? Oh, I don't know, a couple years maybe. Then what? I'd like to go into private practice, join a nice law firm, and specialize in criminal defense. I love the courtroom, and I can see a career there. That's what I did, and I have no regrets. One day soon, after this case is over, let's have a conversation about your future. I'm always looking for young talent. We have 7 lawyers now, and I need at least 2 more. I would really enjoy that conversation, Mr. Nance. It's Clifford. And that's the end of chapter 20.